Hey guys, so I'm seeing a lot of my friends on Facebook seem to be struggling with their own issues, whether it's their fitness, their weight loss, or something in their life. So I wanted to take a moment and share my story for those of you that haven't heard it in the hopes that if you're having a bad day, you'll take a few minutes, you'll push play on this YouTube video, and you'll hear my story and you'll realize that things can get better, and they do get better. I'm living proof that things get better. My story starts out similar to so many other stories. As a child, I was a little bit on the overweight side, but not anything too much. I was very active, participating in after-school sports in elementary school, running the neighborhood with my brother and his friends. I was constantly on the go. As I got into middle school and then high school, things started to change. Things in my life were in a constant sense of upheaval and chaos and not knowing what was coming next. I had a hard time making friends. I had a hard time trusting people. And while everybody in high school was out forming their little groups, there I was in the corner by myself, becoming this socially awkward person that I'm still today. But I felt so isolated and so alone. So I started seeking out comfort in places that probably weren't the best to search out comfort in. I turned to food, and I also turned to very dangerous guys. I was in very bad relationships at the end of high school and the early part of my 20s. Um, Food comforted me. The guys in my life was a revolving door. I was in abusive relationships with guys that were emotionally, verbally, and physically abusive. I was in one relationship with an alcoholic for 2 years that left me terrified for my life on a daily basis. But I knew I should leave, but I didn't see any worth in my life. I didn't see any point in leaving. I was fat. I was overweight. I didn't have any friends. I had nowhere to turn. So in those times, after a bad night of being abused or whatever it was by this guy, I would turn to food because food comforted me. Food made me feel safe. It made me feel loved. It made me feel wanted, and it didn't judge me. It didn't tell me that I was a failure or that I screwed up again. Food, it didn't tell me that I was fat or I was ugly or I wasn't worth it. Food couldn't hit me. Food couldn't, try to break my fingers with a phone. Food couldn't push me down. So I turned to food, and that was my comfort. That was my escape. When you're in an abusive relationship, you find yourself isolated from friends and family all around. And I was searching for an escape. I was searching for an out. I wanted out of this relationship so bad, but I couldn't find the door, so I turned to food. Eventually, I got out of that relationship and into another relationship that, gave me my oldest son, but also wasn't the best relationship for me. That relationship ended. Bad relationship after bad relationship after bad relationship. This cycle repeated itself. And every time I was in a bad relationship, I turned to food. 2 years ago, in June 2010, I found myself at 318 pounds. Having spent the last 8 years of my life, well, 6, 7, 8 years of my life, turning to food to get me through some of the darkest times. I was depressed. I had self-harm tendencies. My arms were covered with cuts and scars. My husband, Steve, saw them, but he really didn't know how to help me. He saw the food addiction, he saw the depression, but when you're on the outside looking in, it's so hard to try to help somebody. In June 2010, I finally decided that I'd had enough. I was worth something, and it wasn't my fault that the guys in the past didn't see me for my worth. It wasn't my fault that my parents divorced when I was a teenager. It wasn't my fault that these things happened. I created my own destiny. I created my own fate, and I can't control how people treat me. And I had to learn that. I can't control what people think of me or how they treat me, but I can control how I allow myself to be treated. By a guy, by family, by friends, and by myself. I spent years in and out of abusive relationships before I met my husband. But even after I met him, I was still in an abusive relationship with myself. I was still beating myself up every day. I was still abusing myself emotionally and verbally and through the self-harming physically. And my weight was a direct result of that abuse. I had a food addiction that I didn't even know existed. I didn't know you could be addicted to food. I didn't know. And I had a food addiction that I was lucky enough that a personal trainer, my very first personal trainer, brought to my attention. Melissa, you have a food addiction. And I was forced to face that head on. I was forced to realize that I had spent the last however many years of my life letting food control me, letting food abuse me, letting food treat me like I was dirt. I had to learn how to love myself. That was the first step, was learning to accept myself unconditionally for who I was at that moment. Even if I still had a ways to go, even if I hated who I was that day, I had to learn how to love myself for who I was. Plain and simple. And once I was able to accept that I can't change the past, and I can't control how people feel about me or what people do to me, I was able to move forward and I was able to start healing. And I had to really learn how to love myself after spending years not paying attention to who I was or how I was treating myself. I didn't know how to love myself. I didn't know how to respect myself. And it's taken 2 years. It's taken 2 years and a lot of tears and a lot of setbacks to get to this point. I've lost 108 pounds since June of 2010. I'm on track to compete in a fitness competition in 2013. I've become a certified master personal trainer, nutritionist, and childhood obesity specialist, and I'm now running a successful personal training business from home. I share these things with you and I share my story with you because I want you to know that it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you've come from. It doesn't matter what you've done or what has happened to you or what is happening to you. You have the power to change your life. You and you alone are the only person who can stay on the path that you're currently on or get off at the next exit. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming things that are going on around you and realize that you are a wonderful, beautiful, and strong person. Don't let anybody take that away from you. I almost lost my life because I couldn't see that I was a good person, that I was worth something. You need to realize that your life, even though it may not be what you want it to be right now, it's worth something. You're worth something. And once you learn to realize that you are worth it, things start to fall into place. It's not going to be easy. It's never going to be easy. But you just have to learn to let go. You have to learn to get to a place in your life where you just need to let go. Pain will slow you down and pain will kill you. Let go. Move forward. Change your life. Once you let go of those demons, wonderful things happen. I lost weight. I was able to follow my passion and start a business. And now I get the opportunity every day to reach out to people like you and other people and change lives. And I'm happy. I'm happier now than I have ever been in my life. And it's because I learned to let go. And it's because I learned to look that fat girl in the mirror and I learned to tell her to shut up. I learned to tell her to pack her bags and move out. She's no longer living rent-free in my head. I control my life. You control yours. Remember that. Things might be bad now, but all you have to do is believe, stay strong, and let go of the things that no longer serve you, make you happy, or help you grow.